Welcome to Preps Plus Podcast, episode 44. I'm Josh Hart, sports editor here at the Daily News. I'm here with Jason Leskiw, Preps reporter.
Daily News, party time!
Alrighty. Today we're going to try to get into a little bit more of the volleyball and girls soccer stuff. Our first podcast of the year, we went very in-depth on football, and then we took last week off because Labor Day complicates things with schedules. But we're 2 weeks now into the football season. Most of the all the other prep sports have started off. Most teams have gotten, at least a week's worth of games in. But we'll also have an interview with Kalama alumnus Jacob Herz. Jason sat down with him yesterday. What'd you guys talk about?
One big thing, we talked about a couple different things. The one big thing that was, I think, and will be important to a lot of folks in Kalama is what are the differences between last year's team and this year's team. And he was able to share a fair bit on that, so stick around.
Yeah. Kalama obviously coming off the big kind of statement win over Napavine last week, 20-13. I think that's a huge thing for them to kind of get their footing under them. They obviously have Adna this week, which doesn't get any easier for them. But that's that's a good part about a non-league schedule. But we'll get into some more football observations at the end of this podcast. We're going to jump right into volleyball. We had our volleyball preview run in Thursday's paper, and who are you liking as some of the top teams this year?
Obviously the no-brainers to me, I think, are Woodland, Castle Rock again. Both teams return a lot. Kalama's kind of gotten off to a slow start, but history's shown us that that's not a big deal. Those are the top three for me.
Yeah, I got to see Woodland a couple times already this year. One, they played really well, and one, not so well. They are deep. They are really deep. You have two school record holders on the same team, and holding three records: digs, kills, and blocks. So you pretty much have it all covered with those two in Taylor Foster and Elise Booker. But they have so many weapons. They have Emma Sweat, who took over as captain in her freshman season last year and is just an incredible leader. And Nicole Guthrie and Olivia Anderson. There's just so many weapons Woodland has to draw from. They kind of bowed out early in last year's district playoffs, and so they are out for some unfinished business, and that's kind of a big motivator for them this season. And so it'll be interesting to see how they progress as a team throughout this year. They won their first league title since 2005 last year. So that's the team to keep an eye on. Castle Rock, obviously, you spent a lot of time around them last year. They lose a couple big pieces in Trinity Naga and Anna Dolan, but they've looked good so far. They still have a lot of weapons left.
Yeah, I think you have to have athletes. It doesn't matter the sport, but their core for the most part is still there, and I think if they prepare the same way,
right,
then they're going to finish in a similar. Ideally for them a better fashion, but make the state tournament, in Yakima and do their dance. So
Gina Bay is obviously a heck of a coach, and I'd take any group of players with her and think that she could lead them to big things. They obviously have the best defensive squad, I think, in the area by far. You have Logan Golden, who will probably do a little bit more hitting this year, but is extremely fantastic defensively. And you have Sydney James and Rachel Anderson, and then in the middle, blocking wise, you still have Zoe Nutt. So you have a lot of defensive talent there. And anytime Gina Bays is leading a team, I'll bet on them. A couple other teams, you touched on it, Kalama. The Central 2B is going to be really interesting this year because I don't think there's a dominant horse, but 4 out of the past 5 years, there's been a Central 2B team. The winner of the Central 2B team, Central 2B League, has gone on to the state championship. So obviously a lot at stake. You got to like the chances if you win that league. But who wins it this year? You have Kalama, who has some big time weapons. You have Tudor Lake, who returns a lot. You have Wakayakum, who's always threatening. And then you have Mossy Rock and Napavine. It's going to be a really interesting race atop that Central 2B League. And I think whoever emerges, you got to like their chances. And that district playoff is going to be really interesting, I think.
Yeah, the whole league. It's weird because it's not just volleyball too, where it's kind of it's gotten to where there's in any sport, I'd say there's no dominant team.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it'll be really intriguing to kind of see how that all plays out. But Tudor Lake, Wahkiakum, Kalama, as far as our locals go, are certainly going to be in that mix.
Yeah.
Tudor Lake, Kalama had an epic 5-setter early this season, so it goes to show how close that thing will be. Nacelle, you gotta like too. They won the Columbia Valley 1B League last year and then bowed out in the district playoffs, but they returned a ton of pieces. Yeah. You gotta like them as the favorites again in that league. You got to think they'll make state this year. Certainly a team in the lower levels to keep an eye on. As far as girls soccer goes, Jason, you wrote a story earlier this year about a couple new programs starting up. What were some of the things you learned from Ilwaco and Tudor Lake starting a couple new teams?
I feel like the most interesting thing, certainly to me, was this was a couple of years in the making. You got Tudor, 3 years ago. Saw the groundwork being laid, the start of recruiting and figuring out, hey, how many girls are going to turn out for a team if we get one, and kind of a similar situation over at Ilwaco, and obviously with both schools getting a new AD in, the program, the start of the program was in the works prior to the arrival of a new AD for both, or excuse me, not in Tudor's case, but an administrative change at the high level in their case. But so you have, these things happening behind the scenes, and luckily I think for both schools there was enough progress made, by the end of the school year to where, everything actually came to fruition.
Yeah, it puts interesting area soccer in an interesting place. We've written a lot about how area soccer is kind of growing, but then you finally see it come to fruition at the high school level. You add a couple more girls teams. Of course, then Clatskanie doesn't have the numbers. They're dropping down to like an independent JV type schedule. So it's kind of this kind of weird area, weird place area soccer's in. But you got to like that there's another two teams, and especially with the athletes on some of those teams, you got to think, hey, they're going to be in things, even if they aren't expert level soccer players. I mean, Ilwaco beat a JV team the other day 6-0 in their first home match, and you just look at those athletes, you go, they can play sports, like teach them how to kick a ball, you probably do all right. So
yeah. Well, and to kind of elaborate on that, and we did a story on this last year. It's on tdnpreps.com. If you want kind of more details on that, go and search for it. The story was about the fact that, hey, kids have been going to Vancouver, they've been going to Portland and Seattle and so on to play different youth sports, but specifically soccer. And the soccer culture, I guess you would say, has grown and grown in this area for some time now, to the point where finally, the area schools have managed to, at the very least, compete with the bigger schools down in Vancouver and up north. So
yeah, I mean, you even look at LCC women's soccer. Yeah. They took a huge step forward last year in making the playoffs, and with Brian Vogel at the helm, you got to think they're going to start getting in the discussion of some things. So as a soccer fan myself, that's really exciting to see some of these teams develop. As far as some of the teams to watch this year, who are you looking at as a couple of those teams?
I'm going to start with my favorite area soccer snob, John Bates's team over in Kalama. He says he's not a soccer snob, but I think he knows he is a little bit, a purist, I guess he might say. But that's a group A. They're athletic. B, John Bates really knows what he's doing. And I think you could also say the same thing over Ari Long. Max Anderson's been...
Well, they got Taylor Wallace now.
For the girls. Okay,
right.
I'm sorry. That's right. That's right. That's a fair point. And Taylor, has worked with Max for some time now. I think they share a lot of the same philosophies. As far as the practices go and things like that, they're going to be doing a lot of the same things.
Right.
And hey, it's worked for the guys. Certainly, as we saw last year, the girls going to state, they have the pieces, and I think they have a pretty good shot of continuing that.
Right, yeah, I think Ari Long is probably Kalama you mentioned too, but I think Ari Long has a real chance to kind of do what do what United does for the guys, of like
Yeah.
really a team that could really threaten to advance to the state quarterfinals or state semifinals. They made the first round last year. I just really like the kind of composition of that team. They have a lot of returners. They have a really strong midfield, and Sadie Allen has really developed as a striker over the past few years. Interesting thing that Taylor Wallace is doing is, and I think it must have been taken from last year's state playoff game where Easton Reeves ran up the middle of the field, and once she got more into the midfield and more involved in the attack, she's typically a central defender, it really opens up the game. And so what he's doing is kind of a mixed formation where Easton Reeves is allowed to make those forward runs and the outside defenders kind of sink in. It's kind of an interesting tactical thing where if you're really disciplined, that can really open up an RA Long attack. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what that program does under his in his first year. The other team that's played really well so far that you kind of got to look at as a potential surprise team is Mark Morris. They have played really, really solid so far. They have a really strong midfield, Mary Vandenberg, Chloe Harris. You got to like kind of the grit they play with over the past couple of years. That could definitely be a team that starts to upset some people and really kind of make some noise in the playoff season. So Eric Maxey always kind of, I just like the kind of grit that he kind of just has his team play with. They've always been that.
They've always shown glimpses, at the very least.
Yeah, and they're just a team that you're not going to walk over. You're really going to have to fight for everything you have. So yeah, those are the soccer team. There's not a ton of teams in the area that are going to be like hugely successful come state time or playoff time. There are a couple interesting teams to watch and kind of keep an eye on. So we'll jump now into the interview with Jacob Herz, and we'll come back and give a couple of our observations as well. So here's that interview.
Hey, welcome back. Here with Jacob Herz, former running back at Kalama, speedster extraordinaire, guy that a lot of teams like to key in on.
Yeah.
How was that as a running back, knowing that every member of the defense is looking at stopping you, and that's their primary goal?
I mean, it was definitely like a big confidence booster, especially my junior year when I felt like we didn't really have a lot of leadership on the team. No, it was definitely cool to go out there, and even in track season, hear people going, "Dude, is that Jacob Herz?" Like that gets
really
crazy. Yeah.
Okay.
Like track season is just all you do is just talk about football. That's all it is.
Okay. As far as the progression from freshman, sophomore, junior to senior year and graduating, what was that like, and what kind of a learning curve was there for your first year or two?
It was definitely, my freshman year was learning how to play with people because, for 4 years I played with the same guys,
Right.
and then we start in freshman year, and then we got Hunter Ezery and, Tanner Simkoski, those big guys.
Uh-huh.
And our freshman year was probably the best line that we had throughout my whole high school career. It was
Okay.
it was, and then my sophomore year, me and Corbin, we got a year under our belts and we got experience, and we started. I remember that first game in Woodland, me and him, I think we're the only people that scored, and it was really cool. It was just a cool feeling, best friends doing good as sophomores,
Right.
It's like as time goes on, you just experience more things, and you do wrong things and you make them right, and then you get in the habit of making them right, especially on the game nights and all that.
Okay. You guys had, especially last year's team, had almost a weird dynamic to it, like especially at practice.
Yeah.
There'd be and I think Brandon said it best not too long ago, where he said we'd have these practices where there was a lot of goofing around, and then we'd have these practices where everything was perfect.
Yeah.
And I wonder what in the heck that looks like. So I was wondering, what does a perfect practice, or what from last year, what did that look like?
I mean, we had a lot of our good practices were Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
Because we take Monday, you just watch film and we go up on the field, do a little running. And then come Tuesday, you had to put the pads on and get ready to hit people and, get ready to run plays, whether it was in the pouring rain or in the heat.
Right.
But, we just, out at Kalama, it's just a different atmosphere than anywhere else I've ever been, especially, with 40 other teenage guys. We're out there just having fun.
Right.
And when it became time to be serious, Corbin, Tucker, Alex, and I, we'd be like, okay, guys, we really need to focus if you guys want to win. Because there were a lot of times that we were really cocky going into games that I didn't think were going to come out as good as people were saying, And
right.
So it's just, as the week progresses, you just kind of take things seriously, especially being on a team that didn't lose all year. You just got to, take stuff seriously.
Okay.
And I don't know what practices look like this year, but if they didn't practice right this week, then they're gonna go into the game not taking it seriously. Adna's not joking around.
Right.
But if they do come to play, then it'll be a very good game. Because I know Alex is. He's probably my favorite pick in 2B for quarterback.
Okay.
For a while, But no, he can get the job done. I know he will, and there's a lot of players out there that will come to play. Sutton Moon. And
right.
even freshmen like Jackson Esri and Brady, they're going to come ready to play.
Okay. How, you were saying a minute ago that Adna's roster hasn't changed, and I presume they probably, most teams with an extra year under the belt get better, obviously,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And the Kalama roster, there's been a ton of turnover, and there's guys filling in new positions, learning, growing themselves, but also having to learn new position, new roles, take on maybe more of a leadership role and so on and so forth. When you watched them play against Napavine last Friday, how much different did the team look, did the sideline look, and even the coaching staff look?
Well, first of all, the team obviously was weird because, I don't want to bash on them or anything, but they just don't have any speed.
Sure.
And it's hard to play without speed for sure. And, they don't have speed, but they make up for it in other things. They hit hard, they come every play ready to hit the person across from them. And the coaching staff, they're great. They were as great or even better than they were last year,
Right.
They're just they may be young, but they're a good group of dudes and they know what they're talking about. And if you buy into it, you're gonna come out with good things. But you were saying earlier how Adna, supposedly lost a few people, but I kind of think of Adna how we were my junior year.
Okay.
They were my senior year, so they only lost 3 or 4 guys, I think, going into this senior year, and going into my senior year, we lost 3 or 4 guys, and so,
right.
Like you said, it's all about experience. Those kids get to learn that position more, and they learn how to do it better than other people. And I don't know, Kalama's really young, obviously. They're going to be very young for the next couple years, but I don't know. I think Adna is obviously the team to beat this year.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people, pretty much everybody, I think, sees it that way.
Yeah.
Certainly the Bulls do.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost, in a way, they remind me of what you guys looked like last year. Between you and Tuck and, forgive me, I'm forgetting the name, but there was someone else on the team that was on the relay team that won the state champion,
Yeah.
Who was that?
His name's Israel Jones.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Okay. And you guys had speed like probably no other team in the state.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, I think that is quantifiable. I think you guys did have speed more than any other team in the state.
Yeah.
Without question. And I guess, what is that? When you look at the other defense, when you look across and you try to see what's in their head and what they're trying to do, how much of a factor was that speed, especially in terms of confusing defenders and almost having them psych themselves out, which I'm sure had to happen on one occasion.
Yeah, well, last year it's pretty hard to guard, 2 receivers on opposite ends that, are the same speed, and I think that a lot. I mean, I don't want to like be cocky or anything, but I feel like a lot of the success we had last year, you know, was having a good line for one. That was solid, and then having two guys on either side that nobody can guard. I mean, and even if you double team those guys, you're gonna have someone in the middle, just like when we played Adna last year.
Mm-hmm.
They tried double teaming us, and Brennan Vance just kept catching passes in the middle, you know, going for 50, 60 yards at a time.
Right.
That can kill a defense. Doesn't matter who you are.
Right.
But like you said, it's definitely. I remember when my sophomore year we were in 1A, and I was just a little slot receiver. I think I was 150 pounds, but they just throw the ball to me deep every single play. Like, but you know,
you made a real reputation for yourself that way.
Yeah,
yeah,
especially, and then when you move down to 2B, it's like the competition goes down, but there are teams that will push you. You know, like Napavine, Adna, Toledo. I'm sure there's more I'm missing, like Liberty and all those guys, obviously.
Right.
But it's just and going back to what you said earlier about kind of like goofing off in practice and stuff, I think a big thing of goofing off is who you're playing that week.
Sure.
You know? Like when we play teams that we knew weren't doing well or whatever, you know, we'd kind of goof off and just kind of be cocky about it, like, oh, it's just them, we'll be fine. And then like when it came, I think it was week 2 when we played Napavine.
Yeah.
That was probably the most like concentrated practice I think we've ever had.
Is that right?
Yeah, because I think us and Napavine have a bigger, you know, rivalry than, you know, us and Woodland. Like, I think I told you that last week.
Sure, yeah.
But I don't know, it's just we only played them for 2 years, but like when we played them, it's like we just wanted to, you know, kick them, you know.
Right. Well, that was a game too.
Yeah.
One-time win. I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that game that might have been. If I remember right, that game ended at like 10:15 at night.
Yeah.
Which would have been your longest game of the year, I think.
Yeah.
3 hours and 15 minutes, or thereabout. I mean, yeah. Okay. So, if you guys didn't have some of those practices, do you think you guys come out on the better end of that?
Like, are you saying like if we didn't have good practices, would we still come out?
Yeah.
No way, because Sean at practice always says you practice like you play.
Sure.
And you know, you go into a week, and I've done it before. I've gone into a week where I goofed off all week, and we went into game time, and I was sluggish. And I think a big part of the reason why we started slow is because we goof off. You know.
Yeah.
And that has like and when we came to play Napavine both times, or even in the state game when we came out and it was 14-0, you know, that week we were dedicated, we were concentrated. We practiced the most we've ever practiced. It's all about how you practice, for sure.
Okay. And kind of, I was thinking when you were mentioning, you know, the speed you guys had last year, Alex Dyer mentioned it post-game last week that, you know, having you and Tuck on the field at the same time, it created really easy outlets, and it also created a situation where the defense could, you know, maybe bracket you guys, or in kind of the same situation where, like you were saying, you know, okay, you guys are bracketed, but you know, Vandenberg's wide open. Yeah. You know, or so on. And Dyer had said something to the effect of, you know, we don't have some of that, but I feel like we're better because we're utilizing more weapons.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, and how much of that did you see Friday?
A lot, like a lot. I felt like everybody was getting the ball, whether it was, you know, a sophomore or a senior, it doesn't matter. You know, come game time, if you're open, you're going to get the ball. No, I definitely saw that a lot for sure, because I think what Alex would do last year was just either look at me or Tucker, and if he's open, pass it, you know. And this year, you know, he's kind of got to scan the field more, and I saw him making great throws on Friday, and some of the receivers I kind of felt like they weren't ready for it because there was a lot of drops. Okay. But it wasn't Alex, it was the receivers, because I just feel like, you know, they haven't had a lot of time on Friday nights. And it can be overwhelming. I know it can be. I used to almost puke before every game.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Even as a senior?
Even as a senior.
Okay.
Especially the state game.
I can imagine that. I believe that. Was it just nerves, or was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just get super nervous, and I don't know. It was probably one of the weirdest things ever, but it got me ready to play, you know.
Okay.
I get the bugs out first and then go out there and play.
Hey, you don't cramp up if you don't got water in your stomach. Right?
Exactly.
All right. And looking at the league, I mean, and this, you know, is interesting. Actually, I want to ask you one other question before we get into kind of, you know, other stuff and your expectations for the league and so on. You'd mentioned dropping down from 1A to 2B. When I watch pretty much any sport at the 1A level, there's certainly some good teams in the 1A.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, when you go from watching Central 2B teams to like Trico 1A teams, I don't know if it's because there's just more parity in the 2B around here or what. But those games, when you watch them, they look like tougher games.
Yeah.
Is that the case, or is it?
I don't know. A bunch of my buddies and I, we were sitting before the state game, and we were watching, I think, Royal Meridian.
Mm-hmm.
They were the 1As last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching them, and we couldn't tell. We're like, wow, do these guys suck, or is the defense really good? You know?
Right.
I couldn't tell. I mean, I think it was a low-scoring game, but everybody's like, oh, we take them. But, like, you don't know.
Right.
Because you don't know if the defenses are just really good. I think, I don't know, 2B and 1A, there's difference. I think 1A has better skill positions, you know. But it was like when we were in 1A, there was always someone on one team or even a couple people that we had to worry about.
Okay.
And like when we moved down to 2B, it was really only one guy, you know.
Got it.
And so I feel like what you said, Alex had said, you know, utilizing more weapons.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in 2B, if you can utilize more weapons, then obviously you're going to be more successful. And in any football league, you know, it doesn't matter. But definitely it was a change going from 1A to 2B.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. And for the league this year, I mean, you guys, for the River anyway, 2B, you guys, or I keep saying you guys.
Yeah. I know, I do it too. It's weird.
Right. So, you know, there's 5 playoff spots. Who gets those playoff spots?
In Central?
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah.
Definitely, you know, Toledo, Kalama, and Wakayakum.
Okay.
But I haven't really followed any of the other teams. I don't know, you know, how Mossy Rock or Toledo or Toodle's doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how those guys are doing, but I think Toodle will get by, and I think either Mossy Rock and who else?
In the league?
Yeah.
Mossy Rock,
Winlock, yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I don't know how Winlock looks either, but I think Mossy Rock will get in, and those will be the 5 teams.
Okay.
But
Winlock's interesting. They got a couple guys who can really play. You know, but you're coming off a couple wins over the last couple of years, and it's tough to. I mean, this isn't the NFL where you get a first overall draft pick and you know, second overall draft pick. So
yeah, I remember my junior year we played him. We ended up beating him like 72 to like 6 or some weird score like that. But I remember they had this running back. He was beating me in yards. And I was like, how is he beating me in yards? And they're, you know, 0-8.
Is that number 42?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we get in there and we start playing him and we start hitting this kid real hard and we shut him down. And then as soon as our JV goes in there, you know, he rushes for 300 yards. So like, I know it was weird. I didn't understand it.
Interesting.
But no, every team's got that guy, you know.
Yeah.
But
if a team's only got 1 or 2 guys, how much does that make it any easier to stop that team, in your opinion?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, just look about like last year. You know, Adna had a couple good guys, and I'm sure they still have them this year. I remember I was talking to Brady Collins. He goes to Adna, and he's a pretty fast kid. I raced him in the 100, and I think he's going to do really good this year. You know, in football and whatever sport he plays, he's a pretty, you know, God-gifted athlete. But he's a really good kid, and I remember texting him and I said, you're gonna do good this year, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's definitely probably one of Adna's better players, if not one of the best.
Okay.
And I remember last year when we played him, he scored like a 60-yard touchdown on us, and I could have had him, and I just stopped for some reason. It was weird, but I don't know. I think Kalama puts Alex on him or whatever. They figure out how to shut that kid down, and then it's going to be up to the secondary guys,
Right.
And then they're going to have their game time. But
Right.
we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, depending on, I mean, obviously certain players have certain skill sets. Some guys are really good about jump balls and tight coverage and things like that. Some guys are just fast. Bracket coverage is one of my favorite things. If I need to stop a guy, that's the thing I would, in my mind, I go, okay, one low, one high, whatever. And,
Yeah.
And you can do a good job. You can at least have somebody there in case there's a catch to end the play right there. Ideally, obviously that doesn't always work, as you and Tuck proved.
Yeah.
Because I know you guys saw lots of that last year.
Oh yeah, it was annoying, man.
Was it?
Oh my gosh! Every time we played a team that had one low, one high on us, we'd just be like, dude, this is stupid. And then like when teams wouldn't do it, we just have a heyday. It just.
So it did work against you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that's like, when Alex said to utilize other weapons, that's when other people start getting the ball and more experience,
Okay. I want to talk about Jackson Essery and kind of get your thoughts on him. I know it's probably a limited sample you've seen of him, but obviously the family and the people that have come out of there to Kalama and the types of shows they put on. What are your expectations for him?
I mean, obviously he's got to live up to his brother. I mean, I only played with him for 2 years, but he's probably, he's like a natural leader. He knows what to. Yeah, he was probably one of my favorite people of all time just to play with, and like get to know. And I hope Jackson, has the same mindset as him. I've only watched him play 2 games, but I'm very impressed with that kid. I think he's going to do him and Brady.
Brady O'Neill.
Brady O'Neill, yeah. Those 2 kids, they're going to be. That Brady kid, he's huge. He's only a freshman.
Both of them are. I mean, Jackson's 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to be 4 years from now?
Yeah, right.
So.
No, I mean, I remember talking last year about those kids, and if they, get better, obviously they're good right now, but there's always room for improvement. And they keep pushing and they stay in the weight room or whatever, whatever they're doing. I think their senior year, they're definitely going to repeat.
Okay.
And I think as long as Sean's the coach, I think they can do it, but we'll see.
All right. And then one thing I was wondering too with the group of seniors, 14 of you guys out of the roster had 38 guys or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So with that group, what was it like for you guys post football season, and then also what's it been like post graduation?
Oh man, I don't know. It's you definitely get a bond with those guys that you'll never have with anybody else. And growing up with those guys, I've been in Kalama since 1st grade. And a lot of those guys, are my best friends. Casey and Tucker and Corbin, and we just hang out and sit around and talk about it, and like talk about how we're never ever gonna play again and how much it sucks. And it does suck, but there's a reason why you have those 4 years. You make friendships and bonds with people that may never go away.
Right.
But no, it's definitely been weird going to games and watching someone else with my jersey on. Right. It's a different feeling, but you just got to move on and hope for the best for him.
Yeah. Just make sure not to be Uncle Rico.
Right.
Or whatever that movie was called. I can't even remember right now.
Napoleon Dynamite. I actually just watched it the other day.
Okay, nice. Yeah.
I love that movie.
Uncle Rico. All right. Anything else you want to talk about to the people?
Not really. Just hope Kalama brings it on Friday.
All right.
Hope we can repeat again.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time out and bringing me out here and letting me talk about these guys. They're a good group of guys, and I think they can do just about anything they want, you know.
All good, no worries, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, this has been Jacob Herz, All-State. All-League. Were you All-State?
Yeah.
You were
I was
All-State.
like all-purpose, I think.
Okay.
All-purpose players.
Okay. There was a lot of you guys.
Yeah.
About the whole team was All-League, I think.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Yeah,
Appreciate
of course.
it.
Of course. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll see you guys next week.
And we're back.
Jacob Herz, party time.
Okay, so 2 weeks through the football season, give me your biggest observation. What's the one thing in the first 2 weeks of the season that surprised you, that shocked you, that you've learned? What's the one thing that really has kind of caught your attention through 2 weeks?
This is tough. One thing, and this is not even for any of our local teams, but I think it'll affect a lot of our local teams, is Napavine's usage of Mr. Stanley at quarterback and running him for 2 weeks, I think, consecutively, about 25 times. If they keep doing that, I kind of think that area teams hope that they keep doing that, because I just don't think it's sustainable. Last week he cramped up against Kalama, and there was another time he went down for a moment and returned to play. And for me, that's something I think they're going to have to try and mix it up. I kind of wonder if they don't have, or they don't feel like right now there's enough pieces to mix it up, and they're trying to find guys for now so that, come week 8 or what have you, come playoff time where it's going to become a factor, they'll have something else. I've heard nothing, and I've seen it also, heard nothing but good things about how much Wakayakam's progressed. It was expected. We heard things over the summer. And then lastly, Toledo is in an interesting spot. And, they have a lot of returners, but they have a lot of guys in new roles. And it'll be interesting to see specifically the game I want to see is Toledo-Wakayakum, because in some ways they're very similar, but I feel like Wakayakum has some pieces that Toledo did in the past but doesn't have anymore, and I can see that. I just want to see that game because I feel like they're two similar teams that almost complement each other, and so when they go head-to-head, it'll be interesting.
Yeah. The one thing I've seen through 2 weeks, I am on the Mark Morris hype train. I was on it before the season. People thought I was a little crazy. Mark Morris said, "Hey, we could have a shot at the playoffs." Now there's only 3 playoff spots, so I don't think they're in the Woodland, River, Hawkinson, but I think they're a lot closer to that than they are to the cellar of that league. Mm-hmm. They didn't look half bad against Kelso. They kind of screwed themselves and shot themselves in the foot with some of their punting and some missed snaps and stuff. So they didn't look bad against Kelso despite the score. And they looked really good against Castle Rock. I know it's not like the state's best competition, but Castle Rock has been a playoff team. They were a playoff team last year. They're not that much different, and they just dominated in every facet of the game. And I get it. It's their second win in the past 3 seasons, but you're looking at a game against Fort this week where you're going, wow, Mark Morris is going to be 2-1 through 3 weeks for the first time in 5 years. And you look at some of their athletes and some of their weapons, you go, man, this team can do a lot of damage. I don't think they were that bad last year. They got just ravaged by injuries. I think this is a team, if they made the playoffs, it would surprise me, but it wouldn't shock me. I think they're a lot closer to that than people think. I really think this is a team that's going to win 4 or 5 games this year.
And as a continuation, I think the one thing that they do really, really well is their special teams game, from kickoffs and punts to return. That was, to me, and it's something I think it's overlooked a lot until, at any level of sports, until you have just a dynamite returner or something like that, or a leg that can kick a 50-yard field goal with ease. And
or Michael Dixon for the Seahawks.
Yeah. That's why it gets overlooked, right? So you got an element there that gets overlooked certainly by opposing coaches.
Right.
Coaches aren't putting that much time into how are we going to defend this kick returner, or hey, if we get pinned back continuously, around our own 10-yard line on punts, how are we going to combat that? So,
Right.
It's something to watch out for.
Yeah, and that's the thing too about, especially about like a wing tee like system, is if it's not working, it's very frustrating to run. Like if you're just getting manhandled at the line, it can be very 2-yard loss, 1-yard gain. It can be very frustrating. Once they start having success with that, and they start really believing in it and buying into that system, and start using some of the creativity that comes with that system, and they run 2 quarterbacks out there, you start to kind of get into that mojo where you can really start to do some interesting things. So, I'm all aboard the Marks train. I really like that team. I get to watch them a lot because I have to come back in and do pages on Friday night, so I have to kind of stay close to the office. But I like that team a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that is it for episode 44 of the Preps Plus podcast. We will be back next week with lots more info, probably. And keep following us on Twitter and Facebook and all of that good stuff. And check out tdmpreps.com.
See ya.